My guest, J.T. Hunter, has written a book about one of the most notorious killers in the United States, the Gainesville Hunter, and he's got a story to tell. See you in 5 minutes. Grab your popcorn and snacks. Find a comfy spot, take a seat or lie down, and let me transport you to a place of fantasy, ghost stories, ancient legends, odd creatures, alien encounters, and other magical topics. You may even decide to join the conversation. From faraway lands to your own backyard, with a small dash of pixie dust. Turn out the lights and open your minds. The journey is about to begin. Hey, good evening, good afternoon, everybody. Sorry about that. My button didn't want to work. How's everybody doing on this fine Wednesday afternoon? Good. I'm glad you're doing great because I am too. My name is Charlotte. I'm going to be your host for the next hour. I'm just looking at different things. Okay, America One. I see you there. Anyway, I'm going to be your host for the next hour, and I've got a great guest set up today. I'm a former crime courts reporter for a major newspaper here in California, and stories like this get me right in the heart. I've covered a lot of murders, I've covered a lot of homicides. I've covered a lot of other types of stories. But when I hear about stuff like this, it really reaches me, And my guest today, JT Hunter, has a great book out on the Gainesville Ripper, and we're going to be talking about that today. Anyway, I am the owner and operator of the California Haunts Paranormal Investigation Team based out of Sacramento. We are 48 strong up and down the state, which means if you have a paranormal issue, we can get to you because we have somebody in the area, right? A good way to get a hold of us is californiahaunts.org, californiahauntsradio.com, or just on Facebook, because I'm everywhere on Facebook, whether it's under my own name or California Haunts related stuff or whatever. So you can check us out there. Right now, if you're watching from Facebook, please hit that follow button. If you're watching from Twitter, please hit that follow button. If you're watching from Twitch, please hit that follow button. And the follow button, of course, at TikTok, because we are on TikTok. I got to scratch real quick. But again, I want to welcome everybody here. Just a quick announcement. I will be teaching a psychic development class 1 on this Saturday at 5 p.m. Pacific. So if you're interested in basic psychic development, we can do that. That would be great. He was there, now he's gone. So if you're interested in basic psychic development, we can do that, and that would be at 5 p.m. Pacific on Saturday. And give me a second here. I'm just trying to gather my thoughts. And you can sign up for that over at the California Haunts Paranormal Investigation Team meetup page. All right. Also, the following Saturday on the 10th, we're going to be teaching Psychic Development Class 2 on that, for the classes. So that'll be also on that page. You can check it out. Again, the California Haunts Paranormal Investigation Team meetup page. Okay, he was in the chat. He was in the green room, and now I've lost him. So give me a second. See if we can get him back in. Maybe he's having problems with the green room. Okay, we'll give him a few more minutes to come in. And if not, we will read Lizzie Borden, right? Because we still have stuff to read in the Lizzie Borden book. But anyhow, I do encourage people to come in and chat in the chat room and, become involved with us. That's why you can see it. Come join the conversation in the back, behind the wall, in the back wall. And, yeah. So, I just like to know, because the summer's ending. So if you guys have any plans for the end of summer, let me know what your plans are. Because, I got something going on this week. I'm going to be just driving around to different lakes and stuff and taking a look around. I'm also a photographer, so I'm going to be taking photos and things like that. So, just let me know what your plans are. It'd be kind of neat to find out what everybody's up to, saying goodbye to summer and everything. Okay, it looks like he might be having trouble coming in, so we'll give him a couple minutes. And if he is, I told him to go ahead. Okay, let's bring in our guest, JT Hunter, without further ado. Hello. Hello, sir. Okay, it looks like he's having some issues, which is okay. I mean, that's part for the course. Sometimes people have issues. If he can email me his phone number, we can do it that way. It's going to be like that today. Let me make sure I got the mic on for him, too. Make sure that's all activated on my end. Make sure we didn't mute. Okay, go to settings here. Let's see where we're at. Mic settings. Let's make sure we're good. Yeah. Okay. I can call you too. You can send me your phone number because I can call you too. So he's trying to get in. He's having mic issues, trying to get his mic started. I think that's what the issue is. So sometimes people have trouble with StreamYard, sometimes they don't. So if you can hear me okay, if you can email me your phone number, I can call you. In fact, let me get you a message. Let me do that. Hang on 1 second, guys. So just bear with me. This happens all the time, and we go through all the time. Okay, I can call him. So let's see if he can get my message through. Yeah, he's having trouble with StreamYard, and I don't know if it's StreamYard at his end. But anyway, hopefully he'll send me his phone number, and we can do it that way. I have no problem with doing it by phone. I'm all rigged up for that anyway. But I don't know. Summer's kind of bittersweet because I don't like the heat, but I will function. You know what I mean? I will get through summer, and yeah, I will get through summer. So it's kind of bittersweet for me because I do enjoy time in my backyard in the evenings and in the early mornings. But it's kind of sad to see it go. But on the other hand, fall comes in. I love fall. I love, the two seasons I really love are fall, early winter, and spring. And that's it, because it just gets too darn hot. Sacramento, where I live, is just hot. I mean, it's like Phoenix hot. Only Phoenix is a dry hot. Phoenix is a dry hot. Sacramento is also a dry hot. But I mean, it just does that. And let me get over here. So let him see what he can do here, and hopefully he'll send me his phone number. I sent him a message earlier about it. Like I said, not StreamYard doesn't work for everybody. He might be having camera audio problems on his end. I know it's not this end, but yeah. If he doesn't get in today, we can either. I'll give you guys a choice that are listening. We can either read from Lizzie Borden because I think we've got like 2 hours left of Lizzie Borden to read through, or we can just tell each other ghost stories, do things like that, for the show. So it's totally up to you guys, if this doesn't happen. And then I can reschedule JT for another day. Looks like we may have to reschedule JT if he doesn't send me a phone number. But yeah, so summer is coming to a close. That went really fast. I don't know if it's because I'm older. It seems like the older you get, the faster things go. And it seems like summer has just zipped through, and it just just whipped right through. So yeah, so as we go into the fall, which is nice, the fall's nice, and since we've had a drought out here, everybody's lawn is brown or yellow, because nobody's been watering out here. So it'll be nice to see green lawns again once the rain starts coming. But it's just been like that. So California's been really dry, not only Sacramento but California itself. Hang on a second, I got an email coming through, and here we go. Yeah. Okay, I'm going to call him right now, so bear with me. So let's just do it because his audio is not working. So we're going to get this show on the road, as they say. Let me email him back real quick. So just bear with me. Yeah, that's fine. This is why we do this. I always set up a backup with the phone calls because you never know with the audio ever. You never know. Computers are computers. You might have the greatest computer in the world, and then that day it decides it just doesn't want to be, it just doesn't want to cooperate. So let me do this real quick, you guys. Bear with me, stick with me, and we're going to have a great show. I promise. That's what I figured was going to happen. Okay. All right. Let's see. Okay. Yeah, that's not a problem. But I always anticipate this. Okay. All right, I can do this. So let me get my stuff geared up at this end. Let me loosen up my stuff. I always shut all my notifications and everything off too when I do a show. All right, let me get the mic set up. Matt again. I call it Matt again, like in Star Trek, right? All right. Okay, let's call him. Speakerphone. We're gonna, yeah, no problem.
Your call has been forwarded to voicemail. Please leave a message after the tone.
All right, let me try him again. You got to laugh about this stuff when it happens, and him again. So I'm calling him. Just give me a second, because I'm probably not on his call list, which, it's fine. Let me get this set up over here too while I'm at it. Okay.
Your call has been forwarded to voicemail. Please leave a...
Give him a minute. Okay, yeah. All right. Make sure I'm calling the right number. It's just one of those days, guys. Bear with us. Okay. All right, let me try him again. Gotta love it.
Your call has been forwarded.
Okay, let me email him real quick. Just like I said, please bear with us, and we're doing this, okay? It is going to be a show. Just bear with me, please. So he can recognize my number. Okay. That way he'll recognize me. Okay. All right. Make sure I got it correct here. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. It's just one of those days, you guys. Just bear with us. There we go. Okay.
Your call has been forwarded to voicemail.
It's going straight to voicemail, so I don't know what's going on here. So let's see if he answers. Oh, there we go. Okay, you know what? Let him call me. That'll work. I'm going to have him call me. Yeah, let's just do that. I think it's easier that way. Hang on. Live radio, guys. Okay. Yeah, let's wait for his call. All right. Let's see what happens. Okay, wait for him to come through. There we go. Now I just got no call ID. This is not my day. This is not happening. All right, I'm going to call him back. This is craziness. Okay. I don't know what to call it. It's him with caller ID. Okay.
Your call has been.
Okay, well, let me do some. I gotta do some setting changes. I have mine when I do my show. I have everything set. I have everything set differently on my show because, all my settings. So let's see if I can't get my do not disturb off and stuff. Because I think that's a lot of my problems. I never hear a ringer on my phone. I've had this problem before, so let me see what I can do here. Airplane mode, hotspots, sound and haptics, focus. Let me get all that off. Okay, I'm taking my do not disturb off, so that should take care of it. Okay, let's try this one more time. Or I'll have him call one more time. Hang on. This is craziness. Okay, JT. Yes, call me one more time if you want. Okay. Yes, please call. I think he's got the same issue going on with his phone. He's got security settings on, so do I. So, okay, let me wait. But I want to make sure I shut all the announcements off because you can hear them right away come through. So, have him call again. If not, we'll just try this another day. I'm not. Okay. Okay, well.
Your call has been forwarded to voicemail. Please leave a message after the tone.
Okay, we keep missing each other. So, I don't know. We may just have to scrub the way it's going today. I'm sure this caller ID was him. I can't get through. I think he's got security stuff on his phone too. Let me try one more time, and then I'm going to leave a message. Let him get the voicemail. Okay. Looks like we both got security things going on with the phone, so. Okay. Live radio, guys. Bear with us. We're trying to get this through.
Your call has been forwarded to voicemail. Please leave a message after
There he is. Hello.
Hey, Charlotte.
Hey, JT. How's it going?
Hey, good.
We must
technical difficulties.
Yeah, we must have the same security settings on our phones. Because mine goes on to silent. It goes on to silence everything, and then the phone will ring, and then it stops.
Yeah.
Well, good. I'm glad we finally got you.
Yeah, I can see you on the other link thing, but I just couldn't hear anything.
Yeah, it happens. That's why I always have a backup for the phone number and stuff.
Yeah.
So tell me about you, sir.
Well, I've been writing true crime books. I don't know, for quite a few years now. And I have about 8 or 9 of them that are out there circulating around. And when I'm not doing that, I teach at the state college, and I teach creative writing is one of the classes I teach, and nonfiction writing.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I don't know. That's about it, I guess.
So how do you? Because I used to be a crime beat reporter back in the old days. So how does one get into doing this? What you do? Because I know I would do it because, of course, my background. But how does someone like you get into doing this stuff?
Well, I had always been interested in trying to write a book at some point. It was kind of like one of those things on my list of things I wanted to do, sort of thing. And I just never really came across anything or had any ideas that seemed like they would merit putting into a book length treatment, sort of thing.
Mm-hmm.
But then my dad told me about this guy that had been arrested and gone to trial and all this sort of stuff over where he lived, and told me his name and a little bit about it. And so I Googled the name, looked it up, read a little bit about it, and thought it was a pretty interesting case. And so I thought, well, heck, this is as good a time as any to get into it. So I decided I'd write a book about it. And, it helped that he actually knew the detective that had worked the case, that had been in charge of the case. So he put me in charge with him. He put me in contact with him. And, I worked with that detective in writing the book. And that was my first one, my first true crime book. And then it just kind of went from there.
Fantastic. Well, you've got a lot of good crime books out, Tell me a little bit about the Gainesville Ripper. I mean, on the background check you did on this guy, was he a normal guy before he started all this, or was stuff, how some of these killers like this, they're torturing animals and stuff when they're kids?
Yeah, I mean, he wasn't doing the torturing animal thing, but he did. There were things in his background, like a lot of these guys have. He had a lot of family issues in his background. There was a lot of abuse in the family in his background, both physical and mental. And there was mental disease that ran in his family. And, I think that's a big part of what forged him into what he became.
So, from that, what was his first killing, and how old was he when he started?
Well, he kind of, like a lot of criminals tend to do, Rolling kind of escalated his crimes. He started out peeping in windows, watching women undress and stuff like that in their houses. And that he started out when he was a teenager, around 13, 14 years old. And he kind of graduated from that and eventually went on to start committing rapes when he was in his 20s, and also started doing robberies along the way as well. And then eventually he's committed his first murder, which was in 1989 was his first murder. He killed a family of 3 in Louisiana, and from there he went on to do the murders that he's, I guess, more infamous for, which was the Gainesville killings, the killings of the 5 college students in Gainesville, which was the next year in 1990.
I find it interesting when you look into the mind of a criminal, of somebody like that, because you just wonder what really goes through their mind when they decide they're going to do this, or as they say, premeditated or whatever. I mean, 5 people, that's a lot of people.
Yeah, he killed the 5 in Gainesville over a 3-day period. And, it's kind of just an interesting little trivia while I'm thinking about it. The movie Scream, the horror movie Scream. So the guy who wrote Scream actually got the idea for that based on the Gainesville murders. He was watching the news one night and a story ran on the murders, and he kind of took that and converted that into the screenplay for Scream. Kind of an interesting little factoid there, but as far as Rolling, he said that he basically kind of made a deal with like a demonic sort of force while he was in prison, and Rolling, he felt like the world had mistreated him. He had been mistreated by his father, and he had a lot of anger, and he wanted revenge, basically, on his father, but also just in general. And he said when he was in prison, he struck this deal with this demonic force, and basically as part of that, he agreed or decided that he was going to kill a certain number of people, and this demonic force was going to help him do that, and he ended up having all these different personalities, he said, because of it.
So when he finally got, or once he got caught, were they able to identify the personalities, or did he actually have them?
Well, he told authorities about the personalities. He claimed that, well, he had his there's Danny. Then he had a Jesse James sort of side of Danny, that he called. He spelled it Danny backwards, so like Enid, I guess, YNNAD. And then there was another one he called Gemini, which was the one that was the most evil of all of them, I guess you could say. It's the one that he claimed was the one that was in control when he committed the murders.
This is fascinating to me. Um, so how did he get arrested then?
Well, I mean, after the murders, he kept committing bank robberies around the area. It's kind of how he supported himself. So he was committing robberies in that north central Florida area, not too far away from Gainesville, and he committed a robbery of a Winn-Dixie, actually, in Ocala, Florida, and ended up getting arrested after a car chase. There was a big car chase, and then he got arrested after that. And when he was arrested, the police had no idea who he was. They had no idea what he had done. They had no idea that he was the Gainesville Ripper. They just thought he was this, guy that robbed a Winn-Dixie. And, he ended up staying in jail there in Florida for quite some time before he was ever linked to those killings.
Was he married or anything like that, or was he a loner?
Yeah, no, he was married earlier on. He when he was still pretty young, he met a young woman at a church he was going to at the time, and he married her back in. It was after he got out of the Air Force. So it was about 1974. He married her, and they actually had a daughter the next year. But then within a few years, his wife left him, and served divorce papers on him.
Yeah, I find it.
And he looking back, he said that's what drove him to start committing rapes.
Okay.
Kind of an anger, revenge sort of thing.
That's what I was just going to talk about, and it's interesting because he had a fairly normal life as an adult.
Yeah, I mean, he could easily pass as quote normal person, but he had this background that led him to want to do bad things. There was an extensive abusive background by his father when he was growing up. There's all kinds of instances of his father beating him and purposely, humiliating him, and all sorts of things that when he was growing up, both when he was, a younger child and both when he was a teenager, that all, kind of combined to drive him to do what he did.
It's just sad that, like nowadays, there's so much help out there for people to, to reach out. And it's just sad that he didn't, decide to reach out even when he was going to school and stuff, because I know there's counselors in school that would help.
Yeah, I mean, he actually had the opportunity to seek help. And then, in fact, his wife, back when they were still married, his wife tried to get him to go see a counselor. And he didn't want to do it. He had no interest in it. He shut that all down. And, if he had gone, who's to say? Maybe it would have helped him, and maybe the things he did never would have come about.
Oh, right. So let's go back to that when he was married. So what did she notice while she was married to him, or do you have details of that?
Well, he would leave at times without really letting her know where he would be, and he would be gone, sometimes for days, and before coming back, and obviously that's something that didn't sit well with her, and that's a big reason why she ended up leaving him. Is she got tired of these unannounced disappearances, and then just kind of showing up out of the blue again.
So what is there any word on what he was doing when he would disappear?
Well, he was doing his peeping stuff.
Sure.
You know, peeping in windows and things like that. But you know, there's nothing to indicate that any of the more violent things would start with him. You know, like I said, the real violent acts didn't start occurring until after the divorce.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. See, I always find it interesting that they could live somewhat. And I'm not saying he was normal because he was disappearing all the time, but somebody could be married like that and have a kid, and and then after it's all, later on or during that time, be committing these horrendous crimes.
Yeah, that's something that's always fascinated me as well, and for a lot of the serial killers that I've written about, that's one of the things that always interests me, and how they're able to fool everybody. And there was one guy in particular, Israel Keys, that he told, after he was caught, he told the law enforcement that he was really proud of the fact that he was able to fool people for so long. Nobody had any clue that he was doing these other things, and everybody just thought he was just this kind of nice guy, and family man, and
Mm-hmm.
he went to the parent teacher meetings for his child and things like that, and no one had any sort of clue or indication at all that it was something other than that. So he was really kind of boastful about that. So yeah, that's the thing that's always interested me, is that how they're able to do that, and Danny Rolling was able to do that as well. And there was no indication that he was doing the violent things he was doing. He had a history of robberies and things like that, but we're talking about like grocery stores and gas stations,
sure,
and things like that. Not physically accosting anyone or attacking people or raping people or killing people. That all came later, of course. But
mm-hmm, mm-hmm. So was he working a job at this time, or was he just living off the robberies and stuff?
Yeah, when he was doing all the robberies, he was basically living off of those. He did take jobs here and there. In fact, when he committed his first murder, it happened the same night that he was fired from a job he had. He was working at a restaurant in Louisiana, a Mexican restaurant,
Mm-hmm.
and he was fired for not showing up to work when he was supposed to. And it was kind of the last straw for him. And he went out, and later that night ended up committing his first murder, which is that family of three.
Wow.
Which just the fact that he gets fired from employment seems quite a big jump to go murder a family of three because of that. But you just got to kind of keep in mind that there was a lot going on prior to that, so
Mm-hmm.
it was all kind of building up, and that was
Mm-hmm.
kind of the straw that broke the camel's back.
Well, you say he was in prison before. Was it because of any types of murders, or was the family of three, or did he did he get caught for the family of three and then move on to these other murders, or how'd that work?
No, he was in prison for the robberies.
Okay.
And he had a terrible experience in prison. He served his time in a really harsh prison called Parchman Prison in Louisiana, and that really kind of fueled the fire,
Mm-hmm.
as far as him wanting this anger and stuff building up in him. And the murders didn't happen until after that. He got released from prison he got paroled in 1988. And then, next year, 1989, is when he killed the family. So he wasn't, they had no idea who did it.
Right.
Who killed that family. He wasn't caught, obviously, and nobody had any clue that he was involved with it until much, much later, until, well after the Gainesville murders.
So really, there were no outward signs that he could be capable of killing. I mean, he was just more, at that point, he was more into just robbing people and stuff.
Yeah, exactly. And he had a side of him that was very, almost gentle kind of side, where he could be very charming if he wanted to be, and that
Mm-hmm.
sort of, like a lot of these guys are.
Sure. So would you say that he was, what's the word for it? like Bundy. I mean, because Bundy could live a normal life too. So sociopath.
Yeah, I mean, he certainly had those sorts of characteristics, and he could, like Bundy. Bundy's like the kind of the model for that.
Yeah, for everybody. Yeah.
Yeah, and for and of course Bundy, he's a good-looking guy and all that, and he's famous for all of these women that followed him and went to his trials and things like. He almost had his like little groupie set and things.
Mm-hmm.
So Rolling wasn't quite that caliber as far as the good looks and things, but he wasn't, I guess, a bad-looking guy, and he definitely had his own women fans, and in fact, there was a woman who got romantically involved with him while he was in prison in Florida. After he'd been arrested for the Gainesville murders and connected to those, and actually, I write about that relationship is included in the book I wrote about it as well.
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm. It makes you wonder. I mean, I have friends that are involved with criminals. I mean, sometimes it just happens that way. But when somebody does a lot of murders like that, it makes you wonder what type of person goes in and does that. Gets involved with somebody like that.
Yeah, exactly. It's I'm not quite sure why she did. Maybe it was to have some media attention,
Mm-hmm.
a little bit of fame. Maybe she was just fascinated with these type of individuals because she had actually had a relationship with another serial killer before him, and then basically left that guy to go be with Rolling. So she was definitely interested in these type of people.
Interesting. So doing your research, was it difficult?
Some parts of it were, but I actually the timing of it was pretty fortuitous for me because when I contacted the Alachua County Sheriff's Office there, to get to see what sort of materials they had about the case, they were actually getting ready to start the process of purging their whole file on it.
Mm-hmm.
So I was able to get a hold of that before they destroyed all that. So the timing was really good because otherwise that stuff would have been gone, forever, and I never would have been able to see it. But so I was able to go over there to Gainesville, and I spent, the better part of a day over there one day going through all these files, and they had mountains of files of this stuff. It was just, we're not talking about just like a few bankers boxes of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
This was huge. I mean, it was like multiple rows of those, those big cabinets that you can put stuff on, and just boxes and boxes and boxes of stuff in these things, and just a ton of stuff. So there was a lot of information there, almost too much in some respects. But so it's hard in the sense that there's so much of it.
Mm-hmm.
But on the flip side of it, it's nice to have all that there to be able to actually go through.
Right. How did he get access to the college students? Was it similar to how Bundy did it? Because the doors were unlocked, and just walking in.
He broke into their their apartments. So the first killing, he broke into their apartment at night. It was like in the wee hours of the morning, 3 a.m. or something or thereabouts, and broke in while they were sleeping. And then the second murder, he did the same thing. He broke into the young lady's house while she was gone, and then waited for her in her own house, and then grabbed her after she came in. And then the other two, the fourth and fifth murders, it was just the same sort of thing. He broke into an apartment.
Okay, interesting. And of course, there were witnesses that saw him?
No, there were no witnesses that saw him commit the murders or saw him coming and going.
So how were they able to, be able to arrest him?
Well, after he was caught for the robbery in Ocala, he was, basically just awaiting his trial for that in jail. And what ended up happening was that Louisiana detectives noticed a bunch of similarities between the Gainesville murders and the murder that happened there in Louisiana, that family of three. There are a lot of similarities there, and they picked up on a bunch of those, and they reached out to the Gainesville law enforcement and said, look, there's your cases have a lot of the same sort of crime scene characteristics as ours does. And after hearing that, the Gainesville authorities wanted to look into this Rolling guy because someone had brought up the possibility that he could have been involved with the Louisiana murders. And so what happened was while Rolling was in prison, he was having an issue with a tooth, so he had a tooth pulled in prison, and the authorities were able to get a hold of that tooth and did some DNA testing on it, and through that they were able to link him to the murders.
It's incredible how they can do that stuff.
Yeah,
that's really
it worked out. Worked out nicely. It's just that he happened to have this tooth issue, and that they were able to get that after it was pulled. So they didn't, because they didn't have enough at the time to really force him to do it to give DNA evidence, but the fact that he had voluntarily had a tooth pulled, they were able to then go access that tooth.
So what happens in the situation where somebody murders somebody in one state and then he murders somebody in another state? How's the trial handled? Does he go to both states to be on trial, or can they put it all together into one?
Well, they wouldn't put them all together in one from different jurisdictions, but it kind of depends on the jurisdiction involved and depends on how strong the case is that he's going to trial for first. So, if there's a case, if in the first trial the prosecutors have a really strong case and it's a murder trial and he's going to get the death penalty from that case, then if that prosecution is successful, then a lot of times they won't bother prosecuting him from the other jurisdictions. And that's what ended up happening here. He actually didn't even go to a full trial because he ended up admitting to the killings, including the Louisiana killings. So it never actually went to a full trial. But once he did that, and once he got the death penalty, the Louisiana authorities decided there was no real reason to pursue their case anymore.
And he used a knife, correct?
I'm sorry, what did you say?
He used a knife?
Yes. He used a military-style knife. It's a pretty big knife. K-bar knife is what it's called, and it's actually a knife that's specifically designed, like I said, for the military, and it's designed to cause the most damage possible. There's actually an indention in the blade that runs the length of the blade that's designed to let the blood flow out after the stab is made. So it's a real big, sharp, almost a Rambo kind of knife. I don't know if you remember the knife that Rambo had, but it's the similar blade like that, really big blade. And he used that for all of the killings. So these are really bloody, gruesome murder sites.
And did he go in when they were sleeping, or did he go in during the day, or?
No, he went in while they were asleep. He broke in the apartments while they were sleeping, really, really early in the morning. It's still, the after midnight hours. So he broke in there while they were sleeping, and he killed one of. Well, they were all awake when he actually killed them, but he woke them up and killed them.
And was he taking any kind of drugs or anything that would add to the stuff going on in his brain, or what?
No, he wasn't taking drugs at the time. He was sure he was drinking beer or whatnot, but he wasn't doing drugs.
It always, even with what he went through as a kid with his father and stuff, it always makes me wonder what it takes for someone to snap to get to that point to where you can go in like this with a big knife and kill people.
Yeah, it would seem it would take an awful lot. There's a lot in his background, but there's probably also something genetically going on there, in his brain. I know more recently they've done these MRI studies of all these brains, and they found that in a lot of these cases, these people that end up becoming serial killers, that their parts of their brain aren't as I guess you could say developed as people's brains who aren't serial killers, and so they're missing certain things there that I guess kind of act as inhibitors on that sort of behavior. So that's part of it, and then if you combine that with these sort of environmental factors, of this really bad abusive background, and that sort of mixture together is what you end up with.
I've seen that study. That study was really fascinating. When you do compare the brains.
Yeah, I mean, one of the guys doing it, doing the MRI studies, actually found out that his brain had it was like a serial killer's brain, basically. He found out, and he kind of traced back through his family history and saw that there were actually killers in his family history. So yeah, it was a really interesting study.
Yeah, I remember that. What strikes me too with these guys is that they can sneak in and sneak out so easily. In these cases where there's like with these college people, you think that somebody would have at least screamed.
Yeah, and sometimes people think they hear something, but if it's that time at night, most people are either asleep or if they're woken up by the sound, you're not really fully awake yet, so you don't really know what it is you heard. That's so doing it at that time of day, he's able to, like you said, slip in and slip out of there with anyone seeing him or anyone noticing.
And since he admitted to doing this stuff, how long did the trial take to convict him?
Well, so he didn't actually go to a full trial.
Okay.
He was indicted by a grand jury, and then he ended up confessing before the trial started, and so he just went to it was actually a jury selection is when he pled guilty to it, confessed to it, pled guilty to it. So then it was just a matter of sentencing. So there was the sentencing aspect of it didn't last super long. Like he confessed to it in January of 1994, and then he formally pled guilty to it the next month in February, which was the jury selection I mentioned. And then he was actually sentenced 2 months later. So in April is when he actually was sentenced to death.
I think with guys like this too, I think sometimes, not all the time, but sometimes they want to admit to this stuff because they know if they get out, they're going to do it again.
Yeah, I mean, I think there are some of them like that, and I think in Rolling's case, he kind of wanted the fame, so to speak, that came with it. He actually said one time that he really enjoyed being known for these killings and stuff. So he kind of enjoyed that all the attention being put on him.
Well, so I can kind of see that. I mean, with the childhood that he had, that's what he wanted. That's what he was craving, and so the only way he figured he could do it was by killing people.
Yeah, I mean, it could have been a way for him to want to, kind of make his mark or make a name for himself or make up for not having the attention he wanted when he was younger. I mean, who knows what's really going on, inside the head of these folks, and I don't even think they know.
Right, because you see that in a lot of these cases with these serial killers. That's what they want, is the notoriety.
Yeah, a lot of them certainly seem to enjoy it.
When you look back on your research on this case, what was the thing that kind of scared you? I mean, everybody that does research, there's always something, especially when you're looking into something like this, there's always something that kind of makes you sit back down and take a breath. What was it with him?
Well, I would say it's just how violent these crime scenes were, how violent the killings were, and what he was able to do, just the nature of the crimes, the fact that he was able to do these things to these people. I mean, these were, it wasn't a situation where, somebody shoots somebody.
Mm-hmm.
This is very up close. This is very bloody, really horrific murders. And, in one of the cases, he actually eviscerated the girl and then decapitated her and, put her head basically on the dresser, so that it was staring back at her body on the bed,
Wow.
sort of thing. So, there's a lot of really gruesome stuff going on. So that, that would be the really, as far as, the kind of the scariest part of it.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. That also interests me and amazes me in that, there's a lot of reports of these guys where they will set the faces up, or they'll set the eyes to watching them. Like it's a big deal to have, like they have an audience when they're doing this stuff. And it's scary.
Yeah, again, that goes to whatever is going on in their head as far as what's motivating this behavior. And, some of them, I guess, enjoy the thought of having an audience.
But I guess he wasn't, obviously he left the bodies where they were after he killed them. He wasn't one of these that would take it back with him, right?
Yes. He did take sort of some souvenirs, but he actually got rid of them pretty quick too. Like, one of the Gainesville killings, he actually cut the nipples off one of the girls and put them with him. But then I ended up, discarding them shortly thereafter. He didn't keep them for long.
Interesting. See, I just find this so fascinating, to get, like I said earlier, to get into the heads of these guys, because it's just so, for the normal person, it's just so unbelievable that somebody could do that.
Yeah, I think that's what keeps the interest in these sorts of stories, going on, and that's what drives the true crime genre. Is people are just it's like multiple things going on at once. On the one hand, it's very disturbing and very traumatic, and just almost repulsive. But then on the other hand, it's also attracts you because it's so hard to understand, and there's a need and a want to understand it. So, that's, I think, what keeps people coming back to it.
Plus, it'd be different if the guy looked like the Night Stalker. You know what I mean? When you look at the Night Stalker, he's scary. But when you look at someone like this, or you look at
he looks like a bad dude.
Does he? Yeah.
Exactly.
When you look at people, you try to stereotype in how they look, right? And that's what's scary with these guys.
Yeah, they're just able to pass like normal folks. Yeah, that's only the scary thing. This this the killer next door sort of thing. That's it's just, you never know.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely, absolutely. When was he executed, or has he been executed?
Yeah, he was executed back in 2006. He was executed.
Okay.
So he was sentenced in '94, and then his execution actually took place in '06. So he was on death row for almost 12 years basically.
When you do these books, do you have the opportunity to talk with his family at all, or the families of the victims?
Well, it depends on the books. Quite often the families, understandably, they don't want to relive the events and have to face those emotions again and go through that. So a lot of the time I don't even reach out to them, just because I don't want to bring all that stuff up again.
Right.
So a good part of the time I don't. The Israel Keys case, the guy I mentioned a little earlier, I did speak to the father of the young lady one of the young ladies that he had killed. I did speak to his father about that for quite a bit, over the course of various days and things, but that's not always the case. So it really kind of depends on the case and just kind of what the vibe is.
Right. And then my other question to you too. I mean, even as a newspaper reporter, there were stories that I covered that involved murders or involved fatal accidents, that went to trial for like, second degree murder and things like that, that affected me. And how you're supposed to, even as a writer, stay neutral with these stories. Did you feel affected at all when you were writing this?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, every single time I write one of these, it affects me. I mean, I make it basically my practice is when I finish one of these books, I don't start another one right away. I take quite a bit of time off away from it. I kind of need to kind of come back to normalcy, so to speak, and kind of get out of that, that darker subject matter. It can definitely take a toll on you. So yeah, I mean, it definitely impacts me, and this one certainly did.
I think that's what people don't realize about what you do, and what I do is you as a reporter, because the media it's a bum rap all the time. But like you say, what people don't realize is how much of a toll it takes on the person covering the story or the person writing the story, because you get so involved with reading the papers. And I've done that with the court records myself. The stacks and stacks of court records, and you're going through that stuff and you're looking for stuff, and then there's stuff in there like when you talk about what happened to the victims, that you just get sucked in reading.
Yeah, I mean, it's bad stuff, right? I mean, it's not light, fluffy, happy stuff. It's very dark, bad subject matter, and if you're not careful, it can bring you down with it. So, you gotta make sure that happen and take precautions as needed. So that's why I said I always like to take a break for a while and just kind of let all that stuff kind of, run its course and kind of recharge, so to speak.
Oh, absolutely. Have you ever had to go interview anybody in prison or even county jail?
Most of the cases I have done, the subject, the serial killer, usually, they've already been either executed or killed themselves, depending on the situation. By the time I come to it, so I never really had the opportunity to actually talk to them, one-on-one.
Right.
In all those cases. So.
If you ever do, I'll tell you from experience, it's a sobering feeling to go.
Oh yeah, I bet. I mean, I've read a lot of accounts of those sorts of things, and I've talked to other people in prison for committing murders and things like that. Just not the ones that I've actually written books about.
Right. Yeah, it's a sobering feeling, because when you get in there and they shut those doors and you're walking down that down that hall, following the red line or whatever color line it is, and you've been searched and everything before you go in. That's when reality hits.
Yeah, I'm sure it's a very unnerving environment to find oneself in.
It is. I admire you. I admire you for writing these books. And Anne Rule was another person I used to follow and admire with her books as well. I've read some of your books too, and I know what it's like to go through the mountains of court records and try to make sense out of it all. Because you not only got the prosecution stuff, you got the defense stuff you have to go through. To read to make it fair, as fair and balanced as possible.
Yeah, it's to me it's a lot like preparing for trial. Because I used to practice law years ago, and so to me it's a lot of ways similar to preparing for trial, going through all that stuff. But sometimes depending on how old the case is that you're working on, it can be hard to find stuff too. I wrote about an older case, and it was really hard to track down materials, to go through. And, fortunately I was able to find some stuff eventually in an old archive, but But depending on the case, it can be easier or more difficult to get a hold of materials. And then a lot of times too, these law enforcement agencies don't want to release materials too because they consider sometimes that it can be related to open cases. What they consider open cases still. So just getting the materials is kind of a challenge in itself sometimes.
Well, I mean, I could see that, and then you're using newspaper clip. You probably go through newspaper clippings too, and that could be hard because all the archives are changed over. There's the microfiche thing, and then there's everything's on computer now, so it's really difficult to figure out where to look for stuff. And believe me, people, microfiche is not the easiest stuff to manage.
No, I've done that before too. Yeah, that's a process in itself for sure. That can take a while.
Oh yeah, microfiche is crazy. So what's one of the hardest, out of all the books you've written, what's been the most difficult book?
I mean, they've all been hard in their own way, just because of the subject matter. So I don't know if I could point to one and say this was the absolute hardest one. Probably the one I put the most work into, I guess you could say, as far as time and travel and all that sort of thing, was probably the one with Israel Keys that I mentioned. I wrote a book on him called Devil in the Darkness, and I did quite a bit of traveling, to different, both out of state, for that, and interviewing people and tracking down materials and researching it, and so probably that one was pretty extensive. But there's been other ones as well, so it's kind of hard to say, I guess.
So getting back to the Gainesville Ripper, once he admitted that he had, once they picked him up, from the time of being arrested to being literally convicted, how much of a time delay was there in between that?
So between when he was arrested for the robbery in Ocala,
right,
and when he was actually convicted, would have been 4 years.
Wow.
Roughly 4 years, yeah.
That's a long time.
Yeah. Yeah, better late than never, though. It's, could have, and one of the things that I always kind of wondered about, too, is, and I think you sort of mentioned this earlier, too, about kind of wanting to be caught. I kind of think that maybe some part of him did want to be caught, because after he committed the Gainesville murders, he could have taken the next bus out of town, right?
Right.
He could have left the area, gone out of state, gone at least somewhere else in Florida, far away from it. But instead, he stayed around there locally, and he's, committing these robberies around there, and then gets caught. So it's almost like he either wanted to get caught, or didn't care if he got caught.
It just seems like with these guys, when you read their stories and stuff, after a certain amount of time of them doing it, and this is what, me doing my studies, even as a reporter and stuff, it just seems like after a certain amount of time, whether it's years or whatever, they get to a point where either they get sloppy or they do want to be caught.
Yeah, you're definitely right about that. A lot of times they do get sloppy or start to feel almost invincible,
right,
like they can't be caught.
Right.
Right. And then they slip up and do something, and then, lo and behold, they are caught.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. What do you find to be the most challenge, like you were talking about the different files and stuff and trying to, work to put these stories together, but what do you think is the most challenging thing about doing what you do?
Well, I guess, psychologically, mentally, it would be dealing with the dark subject matter, and reading these horrific accounts and learning the things you learn about, this darker aspect of human nature. That's one of the toughest part of it. Part of it is, and then, just as far as the actual researching, writing process, the toughest part is for me is a lot of time is just trying to track down materials, that are no one seems to know what happened to, or they've been destroyed or whatever. That's logistically, that's one of the hardest parts.
The interesting thing I find about them being destroyed like that, and I'm not taking anything from law enforcement or anything like that, but I know there's I realize there's not a lot of space to keep track of all this stuff, because it takes up a lot of space, in files and evidence lockers, evidence rooms and stuff. But you'd think they would keep it, because you never know when, like even from way back, a victim may surface.
Yeah, in Rolling's case, I would think that they have his DNA information. Well, I know they have his DNA information, because that's how they linked him to the Gainesville killings. So so they do have that. So if somewhere down the timeline something popped up and it was able to match back to him, they would have that available, I would think. But yeah, it's like you said, you kind of hit it on the head there. It's just they have limited capacity in so many cases going on, and these older cases, it's like in this Rolling case, like I told you how much stuff there was. It was just tons and tons of material, so it took up a lot of space. So I could certainly understand why they'd want to get rid of it, especially since he'd already been convicted, he'd already been executed, and a lot of time had passed since then.
Absolutely. When you decide you're going to write a book, how do you find the person you're going to write about?
Just general kind of looking around, sometimes on the internet, or things I hear about, or maybe a related story I come across, that sort of thing. The first one I ever wrote was the one where my dad actually knew the guy that had worked on the case. And then the other ones, a lot of times it's just kind of coming across information about it, and then deciding it sounds pretty interesting, and then looking into it some more, and then deciding, it's something that I think merits a book length treatment on it.
I just, like I said, I admire you for what you do, because there's a lot of work involved in what you do, and and I get that, hours and hours of having to do that research, because it's not easy to do.
Yeah, no, it's certainly not. But it's something that I actually do enjoy as well. I wouldn't do it if I didn't enjoy it. It is a lot of work. It can be very taxing. It's certainly very time consuming. But I do actually enjoy it as well. So
absolutely. I know you got to pick your kids up. So what's next for you?
Well, I'm actually right now I'm working on my book, and kind of branching off a little bit from what I normally do. It's not it's not a serial killer case. It's actually a case about an African American, a young African American male in New York City who was falsely accused of a murder and was convicted based on that false accusation and testimony, and sentenced to life in prison, and actually ended up serving 13 years, almost 14 years in prison. But then was able to get exonerated with the help of a private investigator who was a former New York City detective, of all things. So that's the case I'm working on right now.
Fantastic. And how can people find you, sir?
Well, all my books are on Amazon. If you just go on Amazon and I guess type in JT Hunter True Crime, all my books will pop up on there. I also have a website. It's jthunter.org. I'm also on Facebook a little bit, not as much as I used to be, and those are the main ways to find out information about me.
All right, JT, thank you so much.
All right, thank you for having me on. I appreciate it. It was good talking to you.
Yeah, and I'm going to have to read this book too, because I have read everything else you've written, and I follow you religiously.
Well, I appreciate that.
All right, sir. Well, you have a good rest of your day.
You too. Take care.
All right, bye-bye. All right, that was a good interview, JT Hunter. And tomorrow it even gets more gruesome. Tomorrow we're going to be talking with our good friend Kathleen Ramsland is going to be back with us, and she's going to be talking about cemeteries, things that go on at cemeteries, and things that go on in embalming rooms. So we're going to be talking about that. But we'll be back on our normal time at 6:30 p.m. Pacific. So if you're interested in that, come on over and join us, okay? I want to thank everybody for watching today. I know we don't usually come on this early, but it was special for JT because he had to go pick up his kids and stuff, so we were moving schedules around. Visit us at californiahaunts.org or californiahauntsradio.com if you want more information about the paranormal team. Let me get my phone because you can hear that thing buzzing, and that's what happens is I get like major messages coming through, and that's why I always have it on my focus mode. Let me just do that real quick. But it's been driving me nuts the whole show. That's how life is. But let me get back on Do Not Disturb. Okay. All right. But yeah, and I appreciate each and every one of you for coming today and listening to the show. The podcast will be out today at 7:30 for this show, 7:30 p.m. Pacific. I'll have it cleaned up more. So if you want to listen again without the first 15, 20 minutes of the phone calls, you can do that. It'll be a nice clean copy out there. But otherwise, like I said, I really appreciate each and every one of you. Our numbers have doubled this month for downloads. Wow, I just can't believe it. My eyes were bulging all month as the numbers were coming in. So keep sharing the show with everyone. Keep sharing because, obviously you think it's a good enough show to share. That's what we want. That's what we want to share. Anyway, as a reminder, I will be teaching those psychic development classes. One's going to be next week at 5 p.m. Next Saturday at 5 p.m. Pacific. Psychic development 1, where it's just basic psychic development, and then the more advanced class will be on the 10th at 5 p.m. as well. And so you can check that out at California Haunts Meetup. If you like the show, share it with 5 people. If you hated the show, share it with 5 of your enemies. As I always say, we're equal opportunity here. That way you can make somebody else miserable. But anyway, please do subscribe to YouTube if you're watching from YouTube, and that's a little ghost down in the bottom right-hand corner with the magnifying glass and the Sherlock Holmes hat on. And if you're watching from YouTube, please, follow. Same thing with Twitter and Twitch and TikTok and all that stuff, because we are on TikTok. So if you're ever on TikTok, look us up, California Haunts. Because not only do I have teasers for all these shows, I've got other stuff over there too. Some stuff funny, some stuff not. But and I'm telling ghost stories about haunted places around California on TikTok as well. So that's a nice opportunity to just check out our TikTok. And again, as you can see, as usual, the ticker's on the bottom, and that's because I have bills to pay like everybody else, and we don't take any money for California Haunts Paranormal Investigation Team at all. It all comes out of my pocket. So if you can find it in your heart to help a little bit to help me pay the bills for the radio show, and make sure I have equipment for the team to go out and help people, that would be great. PayPal.me at California Haunts, or if you're uncomfortable with PayPal, you can do that at Venmo. Okay. California Haunts. Anyway, I'm going to show you his information at share and where to get his books, because he's got quite a few books out. And that's going to do it. And I will see you guys tomorrow at 6:30 p.m. Pacific. And for everybody that came in late, want to see the program, it will be played tonight, of course. So, okay, so here we go. His website is jthunter.org. And the book is A Monster of Old Time. And again, he's got several other books that are really, really excellently written. And they're all available at Amazon. So check it out, okay? All right. Let's see when it pops off. I'm already ahead of myself, huh? Okay. All right. So anyway, I will see you tomorrow at 6:30 p.m. Pacific with Kathleen Ramsland, and we'll be talking about cemeteries and embalming. Have a good night.